In this exercise, you will use jQuery methods provided by Bootstrap to add play and pause buttons for the carousel. But before we get into the jQuery, we will first need to add these buttons. In index.html, at the bottom of our carousel div, we'll add a button group. That means we'll add a div with the Bootstrap class of btn-group. Inside it, we will use the Bootstrap button component and font awesome icons for the buttons. That means we'll create two buttons using the HTML button element and the Bootstrap class of btn. And one will surround a font awesome icon for pause, and the other for play. We'll give IDs to the button group and both buttons so that we can refer back to them from our jQuery and CSS. And we'll make the buttons small and red. Next, I'd like to change the position of this button group, so let's open our custom style sheet, and in it, we'll add these CSS positioning styles using the carousel button ID. These styles will position the buttons at the bottom right of their parent container, which will be the carousel. We'll also set the Z index to 100 to ensure that the buttons appear overlaid on top of the carousel instead of being hidden underneath it. Now the buttons are ready. But we haven't actually programmed them to do anything yet, so that's the next step. At the bottom of the page, we'll add our jQuery script below the link scripts. The first thing we'll add is the script tags, then inside it we'll add this function line. This dollar symbol is here used to indicate that you're going to start some jQuery. And this particular function line is what's called the ready method in jQuery. It just tells the browser that when the document is finished loading and ready to run a script, run whatever is inside this code block. Sometimes you will see it looking like this. And that actually does the very same thing. This version that we're using is just the shorthand version, and it's the recommended version to use, but both forms do exactly the same thing. Now inside this, we'll add our first line of code for the carousel. This line sets the carousel's cycle interval to 2000 milliseconds, which is 2 seconds. The default, if you don't set anything, is 5000 milliseconds. Next, we'll add this. I'll go ahead and type out the next lines first, then we'll unpack what they do. This uses a jQuery method called click, which sets up an event handler so that anytime anyone clicks on the element with the ID carousel pause, it will run this code here to pause the carousel. And same goes for the play button, which starts the carousel cycling once again. The click method we get from jQuery itself. And you can read more about it in the jQuery documentation. This carousel method that we're using here, which we can use with the pause and cycle arguments, we get from the Bootstrap documentation. And if you click on the pause and play buttons now, they should be working. This is an example of how you can use jQuery to do even more with Bootstrap components.